You have 100 billionaires in a room. One middle-class dude with a $300 gun walks in. Who's the most powerful person in the room? The number that matters if you want to either get wealthy or stay wealthy is the rate of expansion of the currency supply. And so if you're not actually investing, growing your cash flow, growing your assets, and you're getting poorer, Bitcoin is the system so diffuse that no one entity or person is systemically important or influential. And everybody shares this common economic protocol in a fair, equitable, transparent, unstoppable, immutable fashion.
It's famous that you've lost $6 billion in one day. What were your thoughts like during this day? Michael Saylor, thank you so much for coming on the Iced Coffee Hour. This is an absolute honor. We really appreciate it.
Jack Graham, thanks for having me.
Your house, by the way, is gorgeous.
So we've seen plenty of your podcasts. We've been absolutely just binging all of these different shows you've been on. The Lex Friedman one got like 10 million views. Why do you think people care so much about what you have to say?
There's like 450 million people in the world that have crypto, some kind of crypto asset. Bitcoin is spreading virally. There's hundreds of millions of people that own Bitcoin. This is an idea whose time has come, and it's a fundamental idea. We have developed a technology that empowers humanity and empowers the individual. It provides property rights to 8 billion people. It provides freedom, economic sovereignty, and the promise of sovereignty and dignity of the individual to 8 billion people. And we do it with cryptography, semiconductors, and the internet. So it punches all the buttons, right? It's about technology, it's about freedom, it's about empowerment, and it's about money. And those are all interesting topics for people.
Why should people listen to what you have to say?
I think that everybody ought to do their own research and listen to a lot of different points of view, so I'm certainly not the only voice. My particular voice is that with the background of an engineer. I went to MIT and I studied aeronautical engineering and spaceship design. So I have an engineering background. I have a long, enthusiastic history as a tech investor. An early investor in Amazon and Apple and Google and Facebook. I wrote a book about the impact of technology, especially mobile technology, on civilization and on the economy. That's based upon my studies at MIT. I studied science, technology, and society, and the history of science is another one of my degrees. And then when I saw the advent of the mobile phone, it became clear to me that mobile phones were going to dematerialize cameras and tape recording and entertainment and relationships and money and commerce and retail storefronts and newspapers and books. And when I thought about the dematerialization of all that, I thought the world's going to change. There are going to be these trillion-dollar companies like there are today, Apple and Amazon, Google, Microsoft. I thought that's going to make a difference. I wrote that book back in 2010, published it in 2012. I rode that mobile wave for about a decade. And I did that while I was running a company I created. I created a company when I was 24 called MicroStrategy. In 1998, we came public, and MicroStrategy is MSTR. It's still in business, and I was the CEO for 30-something years. Now I'm the executive chairman. So I spent a career running a public company. Our company sells enterprise software to banks and governments and airlines and large corporations and most of the retailers in the world. So before I discovered Bitcoin, I had an engineering background, a tech investor background. I was a bit of an academic in the history of science. And I had a background in the real world running a software company that was multinational. And I had a background as a public company CEO. And along the way, I picked up lots of bruises as a tech entrepreneur. I picked up lots of wisdom, learning what it's like to do business everywhere in the world. And along comes 2020 and the pandemic crisis, and there's COVID, and there were lockdowns, and then the interest rates went to zero, and there was financial hysteria, and the world was turned upside down and split in half. You know, all of our office cultures, they all got thrown out the window, and we all went to remote work, and we did it like overnight. All of our prejudices and biases, well, we think we should do it this way, they got thrown out the window, and maybe we have to do it a different way. All of our thoughts about money and banking, it's like, okay, here's your money in the bank, it earns 0% interest. Well, what am I going to do? And by the way, we're inflating the currency, and eventually everything's going to cost twice as much. Houses are going to go up in price, and yet your money's going to earn zero. That causes people to open their mind to new ideas. So in my case, I approached this existential risk in 2020, running a publicly traded company, and we happened to have two things. We had about $500 million in cash, earning 0% interest, and we had a $500 million software business generating about $75 million in cash flow. And our stock was a bit more than $1 billion in value. So the marketplace put 1x multiple on our business and 1x multiple on the cash. And I looked at it, my first concern was, will the company survive the crisis? In March, April, May of 2020, we were all worried about, our lives, our family, our businesses, our business model. And once I realized that wasn't going away, my second thought was, how is it possible that every Main Street business is having the worst year of their life? Every restaurant, every bar, every gym, every yoga salon, everyone, that shows up to work, not only are they not working, they're not allowed to work. And if you open up your gym, people are getting arrested for opening up a gym to get healthy. So on one side, you have this crisis. Half the people in the world or half the businesses are having the worst year of their life. And then in the summer of 2020, all the Wall Street firms had the best year of their life. All the stocks doubled, all the real estate assets went through the roof. When we dropped the interest rate to zero, real estate property values double. All of a sudden, all the big tech companies are shooting through the sky, and S&P is shooting through the sky. And I just saw this paradox. How is it possible that one part of society thinks everything's great, and another part of society thinks this is the most awful thing? So we were worried a little bit about that, but really we thought, $500 million is going to be worth $500 million in 4 years, except that you're going to need $1 billion to buy the same amount of stuff as you could buy with $500 million today. So we're destroying shareholder value to sit in our position. The market doesn't care about us. And on the other hand, we don't own anything that's benefiting from all this inflation and from these low interest rates. So we started looking around, and in that year, my mind opened, and I embraced a lot of new ideas. I embraced the idea of podcasting. I'd never done any podcasts until 2020. I embraced the idea of Zoom. I would have fired you in February if you wanted to do remote work, but by the end of March, it was mandatory. So it's like 10 years or 20 years of innovation or evolution, all coming in a week or 2 weeks. Then I thought, well, what am I going to do with this money? I either got to give it back to the shareholders, and decapitalize. And if I decapitalize, I thought that's a fast death, right? Our company was looking at a fast death, a slow death, or do something new. And I wasn't interested in the fast death. The slow death didn't have a lot of appeal. Just get chipped away at by big tech companies. And so it's kind of a desperate moment, a moment of truth where you have to make a decision and take a risk. And so we looked around and we said, well, what do we need right now? Well, we need a hard asset that is scarce, that people all want in the world. And we need to get on top of the next big tech trend. Is it digital relationships? Is it digital books? Is it digital photographs? Well, it's too late to jump on top of Apple, Amazon, and Google, and Facebook. You had to hit them and invest in them in 2010, 2012. I said, what's the next big thing? And I thought, what about Facebook for money? What if someone actually invented a bank that 1 billion people, or in this case 8 billion people needed, that ran on the internet, that actually had an asset which no government could debase, which every wealthy investor wants, which you could move at the speed of light, that you could program into an iPhone? What is this? Digital gold, digital capital, digital property. What if the next wave is the digital transformation of money, of property, of energy, of all these ideas, they weren't transformed in the first internet wave. And I looked around and I thought, well, that feels like crypto gold to me. And so what if I could create something that was better than gold? It had none of the defects of gold, and it offered the promise of sound money to 8 billion people. And then I could combine that with a digital network like Google, like Android, or like iOS, or like the internet. That struck me as being the next big idea. And so MicroStrategy became the first public company to buy Bitcoin. And we bought $250 million of Bitcoin in August of 2020, and no one had ever made such a large commitment to this scary, new, crazy crypto idea.
Were you worried about volatility at the time, that you could make that investment and have it drop by 80-90% in a year?
Yeah, I was worried about volatility, and the way that we dealt with that was we had $500 million in capital. I wasn't worried that it would drop and we would panic sell it. I was worried that it would drop and our shareholders would have a big issue with it and we might get sued. Right?
Yeah.
And so the way we dealt with it was we announced that we were going to do a $250 million stock buyback at a premium. We call it Dutch auction. And we paired it with a $250 million Bitcoin purchase. And we allowed all of our shareholders to get out. Like if you didn't buy into the Bitcoin strategy, you could tender your shares back to the company at a premium. That rotated our shareholder base, and we didn't have neutral or indifferent shareholders. We had all pro-Bitcoin shareholders. And that changed the dynamic of the company. It turned out that that Dutch auction resulted in only about $60 million of shares being tendered. So we had 175 million left at the end of the Dutch auction period 20 days later.
Yeah.
And we bought another 175 million of Bitcoin. And then we had 425. So at this point, no one in the world, I think the largest public company might have had $1 or $2 million of Bitcoin before that. And we come over the top with 425 million. And we declared to the world that we thought this was going to be our primary treasury reserve asset, right? This is the way we're going to run our treasury, and that was a brand new idea. There's 43,000 public companies, and we were the first one to say, let's not put your capital in bonds or cash or just give it away. Let's invest the capital in this new liquid asset, this crypto asset called Bitcoin. When we did that, the stock doubled. And we raised another $650 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stock went up again, and we raised $1 billion. And we raised $1 billion about 6 months after this initiative in a convertible debt offering at 0% interest. So we borrowed $1 billion at 0% interest for about 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
And we went to buy Bitcoin with it. So at that point, we had said, not only do we think we're going to invest our free cash in Bitcoin, we're going to go ahead and we're going to borrow money to buy Bitcoin. And while we were doing it, other public companies like Square and then Tesla started buying Bitcoin, and then all these Bitcoin miners came public. And so from 2020 to 2024, that was the crazy years of uncertainty. People weren't sure, will Bitcoin be banned? Will it be copied? Will it be hacked? Is it a long-term thing? The skeptics thought, well, maybe, some people, the deniers said, it's just too low. Other people, skeptics, said, oh yeah, it's really good. It's better than gold, but it's too good to be true. And so the government's going to take it away from you. And at one point, China banned Bitcoin mining, and that created a crisis. And then they banned Bitcoin trading, and that created a crisis. So a lot of uncertainty there. But our belief was Bitcoin is the solution to 8 billion people's problem. It's the solution to 300 million companies' problem. It's the innovation, the biggest innovation in money or property rights in the history of the human race. It's like fire or electricity, right? It's this new monetary protocol which is going to elevate humanity to new levels. So we became obviously very big advocates. We raised $500 million in a senior debt issue to buy more Bitcoin. Then we sold $1 billion of equity to buy Bitcoin. Then we sold another, then we borrowed money against Bitcoin to buy Bitcoin. Then we issued more equity to buy Bitcoin. If you fast forward through the 4 years today, since we started, well, we've invested $7.5 billion in Bitcoin, which is worth any given day 14 to 15 billion. The market cap of the company went from 1 billion to 30. The enterprise value of the company went from 600 million to more than 30. So, and the stock 10x. So during that time period, the company stock outperformed just about every stock on the S&P index. It outperformed Nvidia and Tesla and Amazon and Apple and Google and Facebook. It outperformed Bitcoin itself. And it's not very often that you 10x a stock, 20x a market cap, 40x the enterprise value in 44 months.
Right.
So we took a particular position, which is Bitcoin is a good strategy. It's good for the world, and we're not going to be shaken. And while that was happening, obviously Bitcoin, when we bought it at 11,800, it crashed down into the 9,000. So we took like a $40 million hit in the first week or 2 weeks. So it was very stressful, losing 40 million of 250 million, right? I mean, it's a big thing. But we doubled down, and then Bitcoin rallied up. And it eventually rallied, went through the all-time highs and rallied to 66,000, then crashed down into the 40s, then rallied to the 66 again. And then this brutal crypto winter went from 66 all the way down to 16,000. Brutal. And then it rallied up, and so it is today where it is, you know. And yeah, everybody's got their own Bitcoin journey, but MicroStrategy's Bitcoin journey is, we started out of desperation. It was like, do this or maybe just shutter the company. We went from, desperate defensive to opportunistic. Hey, someone wants to give us $1.6 billion for nearly free for 6 years. If I offered you $1.6 billion for free for the next 6 years to invest in anything you wanted, would you take it?
Absolutely. We asked Dave Ramsey the exact same question. He said no, he wouldn't take it.
It's kind of
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
And you must not believe in anything, right? I mean, if you're in business and someone's offering you, in essence, free money to invest in your business for the next 6 years, and you don't want it, what it really means is you've run out of ideas. You don't know what to do with the capital. But, we went from the first step to opportunistic, and then it became strategic. And we realized we are a Bitcoin development company. Our job is to issue securities and to engage in technology projects and advocacy and education in order to spread, the virtues of Bitcoin and the opportunities of Bitcoin to the world.
How were you able to develop an eye to spot innovation like that before the general public? Were you always like this, like growing up as a kid, to be able to spot trends?
But before we get into that, guys, I have learned so much about building businesses and entrepreneurship from the business experts we've had on this show. But if you're like me and you're always hungry for more, that's where I turn to our sponsor, Masterclass.
With Masterclass, you could learn from the best to become the best. In fact, Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership to Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every single instructor. Plus, you could access Masterclass on your phone, smart TV, computer, or even an audio mode. Like you could learn to build a business with Mark Cuban, get world-class